First, I would like to try to present the general orientation of my intervention, which is more about organization of development strategies. And I believe, somewhere in between the two preceding speakers. One was about individual objective, and the second was more about institution, and I am in the problem of organization between that. I explain why. And it's in fact probably a personal reaction because of my personal experience in the past. We are supposed to discuss development goals, sustainable development goals. That means that we have to see how we can decide some targets, some goals of general development policies or strategies. And this is close to the idea of planning. I have some experience in the field of planning because I've been closely involved in some planning experience in the past. First in Africa, mainly in the Congo, but also in some other African countries in the context of structural adjustment program, especially. But I've been also closely involved in the French planning experience because I've been working for the planning agency in Paris for 10 years. And I have also been a sort of external observer of the Indian experience of planning, which is one of the most fascinating experience in the world today. And in principle, of course, I am completely and I'm very much in agreement with that kind of effort, that kind of strategies. And I hope that I can contribute as far as I can to the discussion of these rencontres about development strategies. That's in principle. In practice, I must confess that my experience, my modest experience, results in a very critical position about the practice of planning and the practice of preparation of development strategies. And I would like to share with you some of the questions which are still at the center of my work now. I must say that I have more questions than I have answers, but it may contribute to the discussion, I feel. And my reaction is sort of skepticism, if you like, about what I would call the rhetoric of national and international strategies about development goals, which are presented in a very general way and not always very efficient, very practical. And I would like to make some provocative remarks in order to be as realistic as possible in this orientation. I will try to present three things. One would be a series of questions, and I have three basic questions about development strategies that I would like to expose very briefly. I would like to mention very briefly also some change in the international context which make the situation more difficult for planners today, and to give, however, some elements of solution for that kind of question. In that means that my presentation would be around the question: does it make sense today, in the present context, to propose development goals, especially at the world level? Is it a meaning in that, and can it be efficient, and in what sense, and with what kind of condition? My three basic questions, maybe I must apologize for the very elementary character of this question, but I believe that if we have some doubts about the traditional practice of planning, we have to go beyond the traditional way of thinking and go back to the basic question. The first one would be, and you are going to be surprised about the nature of that kind of question, is it still realistic today to speak about the future of the nation states, of the collectivities, of the world economy, world society? Is it still realistic to talk in terms of development? I am saying immediately that I don't want to enter into what I would call a stupid discussion, which is very fashionable in France, unfortunately, for the moment, about the semantics, about the terminology of the approach about development, and the idea that we have to forget about development because it's a traditional, it's a Western approach of the evolution of societies. That's the end of development. We have to talk about post-development, and nobody knows what post-development means, and that kind of question. I go back to a very simple notion for that. I don't want to try to give any definition of development, of course. For me, it's only an acceptable word to speak about the progress of society in the sense of the thinking in the 18th century, the basic idea of progress, according to which the society tomorrow may be better than the society today. For me, that's just the definition of development. It's not more than that, and of course, it raises a lot of questions, and I come to that now. So if we agree on this question of progress of society, the question becomes: should we abandon our pretension or ambition to master and to increase, to accelerate the progress of society by building development strategies if we take into account the failures of the past, which are numerous, which are impressive, and maybe something which should be called our basic incapacity to master that kind of evolution. And my answer would be very clear about that. I believe that we need coherent development strategies much more than ever in the past. Because our world is becoming, and I believe that you can all accept that kind of position, because our world is becoming more and more unsustainable, and that's why we discuss sustainable development goals, of course, mainly for economic, social, and ecological reasons, but it's also not only unsustainable, it's unacceptable for ethical, social, political reasons, because such phenomena like poverty, inequality, non-satisfaction of basic needs, lack of dignity in the structure of human relations, human rights, and so on, are just unsolved problems today. And therefore, it's urgent to propose some development strategy, even if it is very difficult, and if we have some incapacity in that kind of orientation, but we have to organize them, that kind of strategies as a realistic process. That was my first question. Is it realistic to talk about development and development strategy? My second is, what do we mean when we talk about deciding development objectives, development goals? And I would like to insist very much on the fact that objectives or goals are much more than pure aspirations or pure wants or pure revendication. You know that there is a part of the French Revolution. Before the French Revolution, there was this episode of what is called in French the cahier de revendication. Population were asked to formulate their wants, their aspirations in any kind of domain. And I am afraid that some kind of experience, of planning experience, are still at this level. It's just an expression of multiple aspiration and nothing more. And I am afraid also that with that kind of approach, we stay at the level of some truism, some evidence, some, I would even say, platitudes about the need for progress, about which everybody agrees. Who is against reducing poverty? Who is against fighting global warming? Who is against improving health in the world? That's obvious, but these are not objectives of development strategies. And to go beyond that, we have to consider, and Carlos Lopez was saying a series of interesting things yesterday about that, we have to talk in terms of decision process and to see the decision of objective inside this decision process with various steps. Review of various alternatives possible, defining priorities, which is extremely important because if you make just a list of objectives without any priority, you don't go anywhere. Making a list of priorities, and that implies revealing the preference of the decision maker. But who are the decision makers? And especially at the global level, it's not clear at all. You have to define the power of decision of various social groups, various institutions, and on the basis of this revealing of preferences, you have still to decide how you combine them. Because it's too easy to believe that all preferences are compatible and that there is no contradiction between these preferences. How are they supposed to be combined when there are many shareholders? And then, of course, after that, you have to adapt means to the priorities that you have decided, means not only financial or technical, but institutional too. And finally, to transform this decision process into a sort of commitment from the decision maker with possible sanction if there is no implementation of this list. And that means that to arrive at some practical development strategies, we have to adopt decision procedure. We have to be very clear about that. It's not necessarily democracy. It's probably the most desirable one, but is it always possible? I'm not sure. We have to organize sort of, this is an economist word, but a sort of cost and benefit examination of the various alternatives in terms of cost and benefits for the various social groups involved, not only in terms of monetary value, and then to arrive at a very precise and selective list of development objectives. My third question, my third basic question is, again, the question of realism. Is it still realist? Is it realistic in the present world to try to organize development strategy at the world level, which means that we would include objective for the global human population, for everybody on the planet, with the same requirement of examination of alternatives, choices of means, organization of actions, sanctions, and so on. Who is supposed to be responsible for that kind of strategies? It's always my question, I must say, when I look at some UN or World Bank document about development. Who is responsible for that? It's very easy to say, well, you should do that and that and this and that. Who is going to do that? And who is accountable for deciding, for taking this kind of decision? And again, my answer is that even if it is extremely difficult, we clearly need strategies at the world level, because it's as a result of the globalization process, it is evident that more and more development issues cannot be solved if not at the world level, and I don't need to give many examples. Take the global warming problem, take the global peace. What are the conditions for peace? How do you organize capital flows and financial flows in the present world, etc. These problems are extremely complex, but we cannot avoid them. One of the questions is that we, as far as I know, I believe we don't have a clear ideas, a clear analysis of the criteria to make the distinction between the various levels. Some decision, for example, about the global warming issue, some decision can be made only at the world level. That's obvious. But many other questions of development, of course, do not need to be taken at the world level. They should be taken at the national level, at the local level, at the continental level. There's a series of levels. I don't need to explain that very longly. Now, what are the criteria to make this separation between levels? And I believe that we are not very far in the thinking about these criteria, and still more if you add not only the public levels, but the level of the civil society, of the private sector, of the private association, and so on. My last point about this third question is that even if it is difficult, even if we have still a lot of work to do before be able to design that kind of strategies, we should abandon the idea of imposing a sort of unique development model. And maybe that's a temptation of the world system today for obvious reasons of interest, and also because of the way the world system functions with very authoritarian institutions like the World Bank, for example, or other. These are the three basic questions that I wanted to propose. It's not an exhaustive list, of course. There are a lot of other. I go very quickly because that's obvious, and I don't need many explanations about that. About the element of the new context and the new issues of nuclear armament and nuclear industries, climate change, natural resource exhaustion, demographic attention, world trade expansion, and so on. I do not insist on that. We have more information than before about that, but still we are not very able to have a clear and synthetic view of that. There is another aspect of the context on which I would like to insist. It may be the difficulty to have a global vision in our world. And for that, I have no time to explain that here, but I believe that one of the explanations of that is the excessive importance given to economic preoccupation. We completely forget the discussion about objectives, and we are obsessed by economic consideration, which is a dominant part of our culture or civilization in the context today. So, is there a conclusion to that? No, I have no solution to solve all these questions that I have raised. I would like just to say that to make two remarks, one about objectives and one about the idea of social contract, which is one of the basic ideas of this rencontre. About objectives, it's extremely important, in my opinion, to link that with values. That means with culture, with civilization, and not only with economic consideration. In terms of content, of substance of these objectives, I was very interested in listening to Arthur this morning, and this importance that he gives to individual objective. I agree with that, but still I believe that we have to combine what is collective individual, and the collective objectives are not just an addition of individual objectives. It's more than that. The equity of international relations, for example, or the absence of equity, it's a global characteristic. It's not an addition of individual objective. And finally, this preparation of alternatives on which I was insisting. On the idea of the social contract, I totally agree with your proposal to focus on the social contract. I believe that we are not very far in the idea of what does it mean to build a social contract in our world. And you will allow me to conclude by two quotations by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And I will do it in French because I'm not able to translate elegantly and correctly in English the language of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I take two, there would be many quotations to make, but I just give two. One is about unanimity. And I was thinking, because I've been involved with some negotiation with the World Trade Organization, where, as you know, the rule for decision is the question of consensus. There is no vote in the World Trade Organization, and so the organizers are always trying to provoke unanimity. It's very ambiguous. And Jean-Jacques Rousseau writes about unanimity, I quote in French, l'unanimité revient quand les citoyens tombés dans la servitude n'ont plus ni liberté ni volonté. It's a little frightening.
Yeah.
My second, and I finish on that, is a little longer quotation which where he's trying to define the substance of what he means by social contract. And he's writing, trouver une forme d'association qui défende et protège de toute la force commune la personne et les biens de chaque associé. He speaks at the individual level, but it's we must think in terms of collective organization of the international order too. Et par laquelle, une forme d'association donc, par laquelle chacun s'unissant à tous n'obéisse pourtant qu'à lui-même et reste aussi libre qu'auparavant. Tel est le problème fondamental dont le contrat social donne la solution. My conclusion is that we have still a lot of work to do on that kind of perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you.